Hey guys, for my discussion post 3 regarding CBT, I'll be talking about my work experience with cognitive behavioral therapy. I was a first used cognitive behavioral therapy in 2010, working at an eating disorder clinic in Los Angeles, California. I worked with teenagers suffering from bulimia and anorexia. Uh, we would use CBT in terms of modeling, contracting, working on impulse control, and cognitive distortions. It was a very great experience for me. They place you at clinics that are kind of opposite of what you wanted. I was hoping to work with soldiers and veterans, so my first year was, hey, no, you're going to go work with folks suffering from eating disorders. It was actually a really great experience. I learned a lot. I was just coming off of I was a PE teacher for 3 years in San Diego, so and they placed the folks that are suffering, say, older age folks that are suffering from eating disorders at a different house. I had younger teenagers, boys and girls, basically high school age kids. So I felt like I could work well with that population. I knew they did too. We had, I think, in the clinic it would be about 6 to 8. It depend on what their max capacity was, and I think it was like two to a room, 2 people to a room, and it was in a community. It was a regular like urban community, or it's a lot of houses in a neighborhood. Basically, you couldn't tell from the street if it was a eating disorder clinic. But we would do modeling by eating with the patients there, and a lot of times it'd be really struggling. That's a huge triggering event for a lot of them to eat, and they do the purging. A lot of the folks suffering from anorexia, once they're forced to eat, then they become bulimic. Some of the folks suffering from bulimia there had even developed their facial muscles more so because they spend so much time eating through the day and then purging. A lot of their enamel in their teeth would go away, and they'd even have someone had a deviated septum, or something happened with their septum where their stomach acid would go up through their nose, and it really caused a lot of havoc on the body. I think that's where I saw a lot of severe physiological impacts due to a behavioral health condition. Obviously, that's true with anywhere in behavioral health, but man, that's where I really saw it firsthand. It was a great experience for me. I was only there for not as much as my second year as an MSW, but my first year as an MSW as a MSW candidate, I should say. One of the struggles I had in this environment was when we'd be doing really well with clients, and this is true with a lot of therapies, especially in the military, where there'd be a triggering event. The triggering event for these folks wasn't just when we were eating or things like that, it's when they saw family. Sometimes the family members would be critical, like even saying something positive to someone that has these mid-lobe conditions, these bulimia, anorexia, like, oh man, you look great, you put on 5 pounds. They would only hear the 5 pounds. That's their cognitive distortion. They'd only hear that. We would do this one exercise where we'd have them do a picture of themselves. So have them draw a picture of themselves, and then we'd have them lie down on butcher paper and trace them, and we would show their picture of them and the butcher paper, and show them the difference in how they see these literally these cognitive distortions. I always thought that was a really great exercise in terms of trying to combat those cognitive distortions. That was really, really helpful. Some folks, it depends on how long they had been suffering from the condition. And we had folks suffering at 12 years old, 13, 14 years old. I can't remember if they were 12. I think they were 13. One of them was 13, 14 years old, 15 years old, all the way up to 16, 17. It was all minors, no adults that I can remember. But it wasn't just, a lot of times people associate that with girls. It was boys too. We had wrestlers that basically they get used to dropping their weight quickly, or putting on weight and then dropping weight. And they would have purging before competition and stuff like that. I didn't know this for a long time. Jockeys do this too. I'm not into horse racing or anything like that, but I guess jockeys purge also, and bulimia is quite common in that arena. And so yes, wrestlers had this, dancers, swimmers, anything there's a physical appearance. That's what I learned. And then just regular folks that weren't in any type of athletic or type of sport or dance or anything, any folks just suffering from basically social stigma, stress, social media. but family members, parents put a lot of pressure on teens, and we saw what happens firsthand. I think CBT definitely aligns with the Christian worldview and faith perspective. I think it was very beneficial if we were using CBT and the person had faith. That would help us combat negative and cognitive distortions. You could bring in the biblical perspective, what God wants. That was very helpful. In terms of my question at the end is, what population do you feel like this would work best with these cognitive distortions? Obviously, when we have patients that we can use visual tactics. For instance, with eating disorders, we could show them visually how much you think you weigh, how much you are, versus how much you actually weigh. How does it work with combat veterans? You know, it's hard to show them visually how they're struggling with stress, I should say. I have used CBT in the military. We used it in theater a little bit in Kuwait. It's a less combat theater than, say, Iraq or Afghanistan. But mainly here, stateside, we use cognitive behavioral therapy as a main treatment approach to helping, mainly also TFCBT. And that's what we did our group project on, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very, very helpful in working on those trauma narratives. But let me guys know what you think. What population suits best with CBT? Do you think eating disorders, something like this, where you can really look at physical? Or do you think another population, maybe a military? You know, what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. Hope everyone's having a good week. We're almost done with week 6, or we're getting close. 2 more weeks. Hope everyone's doing well. God bless. Talk to you later. Thanks.